What's going on, people? It's your boy Chugga, aka Charles McMurray. This is a request video. One of the faithful viewers, A. McGee, requested that I talk about being a musician and how I feel about musicians being paid. Actually, I just feel I'm kind of weird about it because I started getting paid at 12, and I got paid like $25 a month, pennies, right? I left my church because they stopped paying me, and I was getting a lot better. And so I think I started getting 25 a week, which was able to get gas from my car when I was 16. Church saw that I left. We lost our minister of music. They called me back to play organ. Now I'm making 200 a week at the church that I grew up in because they needed me. So, 17 couldn't take, there was just too much money I was getting at one time, I was always in the mall or whatever. Then when I went to college, I started playing for 50 a week. Same thing happened. And I was playing saxophone. Same thing happened when I came back from college. But yeah, I guess with getting paid every week as far as being a musician, one, it's weird because I hate putting like a monetary cost on my worship because I don't feel like it has a price. And I think a lot of musicians, once they get paid a certain amount, they feel like that's what they're worth. I was getting paid $200 a week when I was 17, and I was not a good musician back then. But I could have got caught up because they gave it to me and say I won't play anywhere for under 200. But that wasn't what I was worth. Skill wise, that was not my price. You know what I'm saying? I was not there. I think a lot of us get caught up and we pretty much get auctioned off to the highest bidder, and it's terrible because once we go to churches, like, we see the business side first. You know what I'm saying? It's not really an authentic, hey, come to my church. They pretty much recruit us to play. Like, nobody cares about our souls. Nobody, like, when the pastor prophesy on everybody, they don't look back to the musician, lay them out too. Like, they need music for the prophecy or whatever, or for whatever's going on. So these cats, they out, being whoremongers and getting in homosexuality and all types of other sins. And nobody cares. Like, as long as you playing and doing your thing, shouldn't matter. You anointed, whatever. And that's not the case because we just being emptied and drained, like, by how much we're putting into this thing. Because even though we love to do it, like, it is cumbersome being a minister of music. Finding songs that's appropriate for your group, trying to grow your group, trying to teach the parts to people and your musicians. Being consistent, because as a musician, you can't afford to not be consistent. People can have dreams and goals and campaigns to do stuff, but if they fall, y'all still have church the next Sunday. Musicians don't really have that option. We ain't got backup musicians at most churches. And so, we are very consistent. And I just feel like, due to the work you put in, I feel like you should get paid for it. Biblically, musicians got paid because the Levites did not have an inheritance. So they were the only ones to get paid. The pastor didn't even get paid in the early church. We talking BC here. But, for me, I just did not like having to answer to the pastors, having to be at their beck and call because I was getting paid, and it wasn't a thing like I could just say no or not feel like going or not feel like doing it. Like, I was obligated contractually to be places that I may not want to be, to do things that I may not want to do. When it gets to the point where you're traveling with the pastor and you're doing all this stuff and you just don't have the freedom to just live your life, it's just like, but they're paying you just to do that, and so I left and I took a position where I was not getting paid to be an MD. And so when I said I wasn't coming on Sunday, there wasn't a discussion. There was nothing holding me there. I had the freedom to pretty much do whatever I wanted. And I just knew, like, if I did worship, it was my choice. It was my choice to play. It was my choice to be there, and it kind of got my mindset, in order. Because a lot of times I went to churches that I hated, completely hated, but I was getting paid good. And so I just stayed there. Because sometimes I didn't have a job, and that's how I was eating, by these church gigs or whatever. And we're like using the church or whatever. But at the same time, the church uses us just as much. You know what I'm saying? They use our gifts, they exploit us, they recruit us, You know, they cut our pay, they dock our pay, they pay when they want to pay. You know, and they demand that we do all these things, and they ain't pouring into us at all, man. They just giving us money and shutting us up. And so, how are we supposed to act, you know, when you say we're pimping the church or we're using our gifts to this and da da da? Like, they're doing the same thing to us. And so it's a vicious cycle, man. And when you really see musicians and how they act, and, you know, musicians that don't want to be committed, like, out in the world, man, we getting paid. Like, the gigs out there, they are paying us what we are worth, you know, way more than the church is. And people give us tips out there. Like, it's real out there, and the connections are crazy. And so you just think about all these things, and you think about, you know, what we go through and why are we the way we are. You know, some musicians are legit as far as like their walk, some aren't. But I really can't stand in a place of judgment because, one, I don't know their story. I don't know where they've been through. I don't know how they've been treated, because I've seen some musicians that's been downright abused, you know, as far as like people stifling them creatively, people telling them what they gonna do, what they not gonna do. You know, these are grown men. You sitting there treating them like kids, and you wonder why we act the way we act. We wonder why we're apprehensive about joining churches. You wonder why we just play and then hang out outside until church is over. You know, it's like you can only take so much, and being a musician playing for groups, you see so much more of the bad than you do the good, just in this thing we call religion. And it affects you, man. It really does. So, you know, I didn't get paid for like 3 years, and I think on the last limb to keep me, they started paying me. But I don't care about the money, man. I'm out here eating like I'm good, you know. Like, but you know, I feel like as a musician, you do need to question your motives, and you do need to go to a church in which you're getting fed first, and that you can minister second. You know, because a lot of people say church is a hospital. I think church is a training ground. And if you're not being trained and equipped to handle yourself outside of the church, then you probably need to go somewhere else. You know, you got to be at a place where you can be equipped and you can stand. You know, when the enemy comes in like a rushing flood, the Spirit of the Lord raises the standard against him. Like, we got to be prepared to raise that standard, you know, because we get attacked more than anybody, you know, and that's just real. And, you know, just to be true and everything. Like, I want to go to a church that I want to use my gifts. I'm free to use my gifts, and not just playing, but other gifts as well. You know, that's just my dream. Like, where I have the relationship and the rapport so much so that I am released to use everything, you know, to serve the church. But I've just never been in a position where I care that much, because nobody's ever been in a position that they care for me that much. So it's like, what's the point? You know? So, it is what it is. That's just my take on it. Peace, love, y'all.